Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation. I'm quite excited basically to share with you the terraces house, which we finished basically like 2 years ago. It's in a small village called Brih. It's in the Shuf region. Tonight, I'm going through this presentation. I'm going to be discussing 3 different things mainly. One, which is the site, the strategy, and the house. So this presentation should take maximum between 15 to 20 minutes sharp. I'm going to start with this satellite view, which goes back to 1968. It shows the village of Brih, which is located in the Shuf region, nestled at 850 meters above the sea level. As you can see, it's a low-density village. And when you look at the land or the mountains around it, it shows mainly that it was an agricultural land. The blue line that you're looking at is a water channel that runs through the village, coming from Nab al-Safa going to Beit Din. And the dotted line is actually our site where we built the house. I have to say that the abundance of water led to the cultivation of the land. And as you can see, our site is adjacent to the water stream. So again, our grandfather, if you look at the way they used to cultivate the land on slopes, was through creating these stone terraces, following the contour of the topography. And the stone terraces were used for the cultivation of crops, primarily vineyards, olive, apple, citrus, and mulberry. So here in this slide, what we're looking at the road network in the village, and we're looking at the actual site. And as you can see, our site is only accessible from one point where it sort of intersects with the road network. And in 2012, we were approached by a client who wanted to build a multi-generational summer house. And of course, the first thing we did was actually as visiting the site, which I believe is extremely important for every architect to start a project. It's by visiting the site where you start to get yourself familiar with the actual site, with the context, and even start building some sort of relationship even with the client. So our land in this case is on the image on the right side. It's around 12,000 square meters with a drop of 22 meters. And what you can see, the first thing you can notice is the traces of the abandoned terraces. The image on the left is also shows you the abandoned structures, which is abandoned houses, which is due to the displacement of its inhabitants during the civil war. So for some reason, the client kind of postponed the project for 2 years. And then in 2014, we received a call from the client, and he was like, guys, I'm going to proceed with the project, and I would like to visit the project again. So we went back after 2 years, and by that time, things have completely changed. When we looked at the site, the scenery was completely different. It was more like a battlefield. So we have structures popping up like mushrooms. And this was due basically to the fact that the Minister of Interior at that time, in order to encourage the people to return to their villages, they allowed them to build structures under 150 square meters without even obtaining any building permits. So we ended up with this kind of chaotic situation. And not only that, at that time, sort of in between, the client consulted with a different architect. And in order to they decided to place the house on the upper level of the site. But in order to reach the upper level of the site, they created this road which cut through the land like a zigzag and sort of ruining or erasing all the traces of the natural land. Just to give you an idea about the typical kind of construction that is happening in the region. For a mountain family house, this is basically what you see on your way to when you're driving in the mountains. You have this very sort of monumental structures, very dominant and more like a fortress. And this is exactly what we wanted to avoid with our project. So 3 key points basically that we wanted to tackle with the project. One, which is the connection with the road, the regeneration of the terraces, and the house typology. So it was very logical, and it made a lot of sense when we visited the site. Again, given the fact that we had like 22 meters drop, it was very logical to place the house at the upper level of the site so it could take advantage of the views around it. And then the main question or the main challenge is how to bring the car basically from the street, which is at the lower level, and how do we bring in the car all the way up to the house without basically disturbing the landscape or the land around it. So what we did, we've introduced a street or road at the periphery of the site, which is adjacent to the water channel. And by doing that, we preserve the actual landscape, where we transform it later on into a series of terraces. And we've connected with the network of, with the road network around the site. Reintroducing the agricultural terrace language was very important for us. We wanted to regenerate the topography of the land. And so by doing that, we tried to weave the site with its natural surrounding. This is a section that shows the road at the bottom, the stone terraces that are following the natural landform, and the placement of the house overlooking the village on the top. As you can see, the continuity basically between the abandoned terraces and the regenerated one, truly respecting the context and the nature of the land. So again, the kind of intended harmony with the context was not only limited to the stone terraces, but rather extended to the softscape itself, where plants and trees that were native to the area were the selected palette. In this case, we've selected like mulberry trees. We work with a specialist where we've selected mulberry trees, the olive trees, citrus, and different kind of trees that were native to the area. Here you can see the stone terraces, which were planted with olive trees. You can see the row that we introduced at the edge, where a diverse set of trees were introduced on both sides of the road. And you can see the house on top, sitting in between 2 different gardens, where different kind of plants were planted, shrubs, with even aromatic plants. So when we started working on the design of the project, we experimented with different schematics, different scenarios of different compositions around the idea of the courtyard. So we've experimented with different ideas. We look at the one, let's say the second one, here we experimented with the idea of having a fragmented scenario. Then again, it's wrapping around the central space. The one after were more like three different slabs. But at the end, we decided to go for a U-shaped configuration, which is consisting of 3 different volumes. Again, I think it's a reinterpretation of the central courtyard house typology, but in this case, we open it up from one side, and in order to create this connection with the landscape and the outdoor space. So you look at we place the public functions on the front side, overlooking the view, and we pushed all the family functions to the back, and the connection of the two was through the entrance lobby. So again, this idea of the courtyard was very, very important in this case, because it's provided the level of privacy required when you're designing a house in a mountain. And specifically in this case, the family sort of enjoyed this private space. And I truly believe that as an architect, it's very important to develop this or to have this, try to integrate within the design the local culture and the needs of the local inhabitants. And in this case, it was very, very useful. So Now looking at the plans on the front side, you can see the formal living and the dining, again, overlooking the views, but with no sort of visual connection to the private courtyard. And on the back, we had the family functions, with two main functions basically playing an important role. One of them, which is the kitchen and the family room. The kitchen, because, you know, also it's part of the culture in the mountains, or part of the way people live in the mountains. In this case, the kitchen was accessible directly from outside, and it was sitting in between the courtyard and the garden on the left. So, you know, when you go to the house, you can see the family, you know, meeting in the kitchen with extended family or with friends, sitting, eating, specifically in the kitchen, preparing food, and most of the time, of course, taking advantage of the beautiful weather outside and having their, you know, lunch or dinner outside in the courtyard. On the back, we placed the family room in between the grandmother's bedroom, which specifically asked to have, again, a direct connection from outside, having her own suite with a direct connection from outside, and also a connection to the garden. In between, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. You are now standing on the plan and the first floor, right?
Okay, yes, sure. So, and then on the right side of the living room, we have two guest bedrooms as well. You take the stairs up to reach the master bedroom. Master's bedroom with its private terrace overlooking the courtyard, and the two kids' bedroom. On the left, this is a picture of the family room, which is a double height space with a bridge that connects the bedrooms to each other, and a direct connection to the courtyard outside. On the right, you can see also the main entrance view and the connection to the courtyard outside. This is a view from the newly introduced road. And for us, you know, it was very, very clear from the beginning that we wanted to create a project that does not seek to impose its presence on the site, but rather become part of the surrounding context. Here you see that the house follows the horizontality of the landscape, creating an interesting dialogue between the two, the stone terraces and the house. We designed this kind of monumental staircase that connects the different stone terraces all the way up to the courtyard. And what you're seeing on the bottom left is a very charming guest suite that we introduced, completely detached from the house. It has its full privacy, and it's embedded within the stone terraces. Similar to what's happening to the basement, which is underneath the white box on top. Again, it's embedded within the stone terraces. This is a view of the courtyard with the pool, which acts more like a piazza. These are some views from the courtyards, and you see its connection to the mountains and the landscape around it, which was very important for us. For the material, we tried to create some sort of an interesting kind of vocabulary between the use of the local and natural stone in contrast with the white stucco. And we used also terrazzo for the flooring. This is a small detail of the formal living. As you can see, the corner opening, the corner glass, it completely opens, and the space becomes more like a balcony. The environmental factor was also taken into consideration, not only in the orientation or the type of openings, but also in the construction techniques, using local labor and local materials. We also used double wall, working more efficiently with the climate. And one more detail before approaching the end, where I'm going to leave you with a short video. This is a detail of the stairs that connects the two different floors of the family. It protrudes from the volume with openings on opposite ends, allowing for natural light and natural ventilation. So if I want to summarize, I think keywords like simplicity, modesty were behind the design of this house, where we tried to create a discrete house, sort of completely integrated within the landscape, the context, and its history. All right, I guess this is it, yeah. Thank you.
So we have the first question. How did the local community react to this project? And did you make use of any local skills? And did you visit the project lately, and what's reaction to it after 2 years?
Actually, most of the pictures I shared with you are very recent pictures that were taken only 2 weeks ago. And I made it a point to do that because we wanted to see how the landscape, basically, how the trees grew and how the whole site was transformed because of the landscape, which I think, you know, as you can see from given the site and the architectural approach, the landscape played a major role, and the landscape completely changed the way you perceive from the house from the day we finished it until now. So it was very interesting to see the landscape in that sense. And just to give you an idea that definitely we kind of collaborated with the local community, or the local skilled laborers, I would say, from the village. And especially in building the stone terraces, where there's a specific technique to do that. On one hand, we use the local stone from the site and the surrounding sites, and we collaborated with they shared basically they shared with us basically their know-how in terms of building the stone terraces, which is something very specific to the area. And then also with the concrete construction. Again, we've collaborated with people from the village. And this is something that we've agreed together with the client that is something that we had to do to try to use as much as possible to work with people from the village and the area, and to use local materials.
Okay, actually there is one question here which is relative to the latest part you have mentioned about the used material. This question is asking about the construction material that was used in the building phase, and is it a rock material or concrete material?
For the stone terraces, we use the local stone, which is a stone construction. For the house, we use the concrete as part of the construction technique, which is used in Lebanon since the 60s, I would say, or even 50s. So it's been used since long time.
Okay, well, we'll have another question, which is, was it easy to convince the client to go against the grain and build something that is more discreet than what's usually built in mountains?
Actually, this is you know, due to the fact that the land was 12,000 square meters, and the fact that the client used to live abroad, used to live somewhere in Europe. So we kind of agreed in the beginning that there should be some sort of a balance between the architecture and the landscape. And specifically, you know, when we first visited the land, and you know, the client is really very sort of attached to his village, and it was part of his request that he didn't want to build anything that is loud, rather something that works, you know, works with the landscape and something that is integrated with the landscape. I was lucky enough to have such a client, basically, who would accept this idea. Unlike what I've showed you before, the different examples where people are looking to have something very loud. In this case, we were able to do something which is site-specific, something very sensitive.
We'll have one more question, which is the final question about were there any sustainable system integrated into the project, such as solar energy or water treatment in the project?
Yes, all of these, we tried as much as possible to sort of integrate them within our designs. We have solar panels on the roof. We have this system of water collection for the irrigation. Even the machines that we use for the VRV, for the air conditioning, the kind of LED light that we use, we tried as much as possible to sort of integrate it within our designs. We took it into consideration, and again, in the selection of materials, working with the local skilled labor, the positioning of the house, the orientation of the openings, all of these, and even the treatment of the external envelope of the building, which takes into consideration the climate. All of these were taken into consideration during the early design stages of the project.
We would like to thank you for this impressive presentation. We'd like to thank you that you have been part of this Arab Architecture Week.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this invitation again. Thank you so much.